So the game I'm playing today is called Virtua Racing Demake. So this is going to be an interesting video, I think, because we're going to be taking a look at a very iconic video game, quite possibly one of the most influential racing games of all time. But we're going to be taking a look at a fan-made port of the game. So this is something that I've actually known about for quite a while, and I think I mentioned in an older video that I did want to try and play Virtua Racing at some point, but I wasn't specifically referring to, or I guess I wasn't explicitly referring to this port of the game, but I might as well start off by explaining what Virtua Racing is. So if you're unfamiliar with the game, it was originally an arcade game created by Sega that was released all the way back in 1992. It was designed primarily by legendary game developer Yu Suzuki. At its core, it was a fairly straightforward arcade racing game that was themed mostly around Formula 1 racing. You had a vehicle that you could choose, and I believe you could also switch between different transmissions, which I don't believe is actually possible to do in this port of the game. But you could select the vehicle, you could race on 3 different tracks. Each track basically functioned as a different difficulty setting for the game, and as with any other racing game on the planet, the ultimate goal was to try and get first place. However, because this was an arcade game, there was a time limit that you also needed to pay attention to. If the time limit ran out, you would fail the game. You could extend the time limit by basically playing the game correctly. There were various checkpoints scattered throughout all of the levels, and you could extend your time limit by simply speeding through all of the checkpoints. Of course, you had to do that within the time limit. You couldn't just take your sweet-ass time getting to the checkpoints, so the game never really gave you an opportunity to stop at any point, and I mean, that's not the point of racing anyway. Virtua Racing is widely regarded as being one of the best arcade games of all time. Not just a racing game, like the best of the best. The game is mostly well remembered for its use of 3D polygonal graphics, which for 1992 were pretty impressive, although they do look fairly primitive by today's standards. It is worth mentioning though that Virtua Racing was not the first racing game to use 3D graphics, because there was Winning Run that came out like 4 years before that, but Virtua Racing's 3D graphics were far more advanced than anything that was on the market at the time. It was eventually ported to other platforms, including the Sega Genesis N32X in 1994, the Sega Saturn in 1995, the PlayStation 2 in 2004, and the Nintendo Switch in 2019. However, we are not going to be looking at any of these ports today. We're not even looking at the arcade version. We are going to be looking at a fan-made Pico-8 port of Virtua Racing that also came out in 2019, and it was developed by someone on itch.io who goes by the username Fred72. So what exactly is this version of the game all about? Well, it's Virtua Racing, but it's been ported to the independently developed Pico-8 game engine. Now, I have covered some Pico-8 games on my channel in the past. There was a demake of No Man's Sky that I covered a while back called Low Mem Sky. That was also made in the Pico-8 engine, and that's essentially what this version of the game is. This is essentially an 8-bit demake of Virtua Racing. If you're not familiar with Pico-8, to put it in the simplest terms possible, it's a game engine that allows you to create your own 8-bit video games. It's a fairly popular game engine amongst indie developers in particular, and when I discovered that someone had actually managed to port the entirety of Virtua Racing over to the Pico-8 engine, I was admittedly a bit skeptical at first, because Virtua Racing, despite looking pretty dated now by today's standards, is still a fairly advanced racing game for its time. And I thought to myself, how exactly could this even be possible? Like, how could you possibly port such a technologically advanced game like Virtua Racing over to such a primitive, I mean intentionally primitive game engine like Pico-8? Is that even possible? Well, as it turns out, it's very much possible. Now, I do need to put some disclaimers here before we begin. This is not an official port of Virtua Racing. As far as I know, Sega does not officially endorse this port, and there is also the possibility that this port could potentially be illegal, because according to the game's developer, a lot of the 3D models in this port were ripped directly from the Genesis version. So these are not custom-made models, they're actually from the Genesis port. So this port definitely falls into a gray area in terms of legality, because it's using assets from an official port of the game. But so far, Sega have not yet DMCA'd the creator of this port. I mean, this port's been available on itch.io for the past 2 years, completely free to download, and so far Sega hasn't done anything about it. And frankly, I hope they don't do anything about it, because this is a pretty impressive port, man, and I would love to see more people playing it. It does have fairly good ratings on itch.io as well. I think it has 43 ratings in total, and the average rating is 4.8 out of 5. So people seem to think that it's a pretty damn good port, so with that being said, how's about we just get started right away? I won't be playing this port for too long because there isn't that much to go over. What I also like about this too is that this port also contains remixed versions, basically 8-bit versions of some of the tracks that played in Virtua Racing, like the arcade version. I especially love this track selection music here. Like, this track selection music sounds so freaking heavy, like just listen to it for goodness sakes. Like, it goes so hard near the end. Like, this song has no reason to rock out this much. Also, I have no idea why the main menu music is suddenly playing again. So we have 3 different tracks that we can select from. We have Big Forest, which is the beginner track, Ocean, which is the medium track. I think in the arcade version, this track is called Bay Bridge. And then you have Acropolis, which is the expert track. So I only have a track record set on one of these tracks because I was only able to complete Big Forest. So you have to complete 3 laps around the track in order to get a track record. Coming in first place doesn't seem to matter all too much, at least in this port of the game. You do have computer opponents that are racing around the track as well, but it doesn't seem to matter all too much whether you come in first or 8th. The only thing the game seems to keep track of is your track record, and the only reason I don't have track records on these tracks is because I wasn't able to complete them within the time limit. It's actually pretty difficult to complete these 2 tracks within the time limit, I feel. Especially Acropolis. I just feel like it doesn't really give you that much time to beat a lot of these tracks. For now though, we're gonna go to Big Forest. We're gonna start this off by going to the Big Forest track. I will be showing off all 3 tracks in this game, and as far as I know, these are all faithful recreations of all the tracks from the arcade port of Virtua Racing, even though this looks a lot more like the Genesis version. So, if you want to know how to drive, you can press the N key or hold down the N key in order to accelerate, and press the M key to brake. So, there isn't really that much to say about Virtua Racing itself. I mean, yeah, you can drive through all the checkpoints, of course, in order to extend your time. You only get a 10-second time extension for every checkpoint that you drive through, which, on some of the more difficult tracks, I feel is not a great amount of time, just considering how long it takes to beat some of the harder tracks, just how lengthy some of the other tracks are. This one, it's not so bad though, because this is a fairly simple and straightforward track, and it's also fairly short as well. So yeah, we're just trying to complete 3 laps here. This is more like a time attack game, if anything else, or at least this port is, because you're only really concerned about getting a good time. You're not really too concerned about trying to overtake some of the other opponents here. There's also different, this is also something that I find really insane about this port. So you do have different cameras that you can choose from here, and you can switch between the cameras by pressing the down arrow key. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know how to turn, you use the left and right arrow keys. I just completely glitched through that car somehow. Yeah, left and right arrow keys to steer, but you can press the down arrow key to go through some of the different camera angles, and you have 3 different camera angles in total. You have this top-down view right here, then you also have, like, the chase camera, basically, and then you also have this first-person view where you can actually go inside the cockpit, so you can see exactly what the driver's seat is. There's not really any use to them other than that, but I do feel like it kind of allows you to see the track a little bit better, like this view, specifically. It does make it a little more difficult to see the car itself, but still. I mean, to be fair, you'll notice that there's a heavy amount of pixelation in this port of the game, and I'm gonna be completely honest, the heavy amount of pixelation does make it very difficult to see the track sometimes. Like, I sometimes have to squint in order to see where the next turn is sometimes, and it's not, definitely not very good. Like, this is definitely not the most ideal way to play Virtua Racing. I would recommend that you probably just play the Switch version, because I do believe the Switch version is considered, like, the best version of the game, because unlike the arcade version, the Switch port runs at 60 frames per second and also has, like, full widescreen support too. So we did manage to beat the Big Forest track in time. I didn't set a new track record though, because that was actually somewhat slower than my previous one. So next we can go to the Ocean track, or Bay Bridge as it's known in the arcade port, and I think every other, like, subsequent port of the game too that contains the track. So this is a slightly more difficult track. This is also kind of weird because apparently the track starts at the bridge right here, and the bridge is very clearly modeled after the Golden Gate Bridge here, as you can see, so I'm assuming this takes place somewhere in California. I don't know about those palm trees, though. I don't know, do they have palm trees in California? I mean, I've never been there before, so I wouldn't freaking know. So this is one of the tracks that I wasn't able to beat off screen, but I'm gonna see if I can try and do it this time. This is one of those, this is definitely a track that I struggled with for all sorts of different reasons, like not only because it's a lot more difficult, but there are some sections where I just feel like the road somehow blends into the walls, and it makes it really difficult to see where the heck I am, so I don't know. Maybe this overhead view will help me out immensely here. Maybe I should just use this for a little while. Yeah, beating the opponents in this game is definitely really not as important. Okay, did it actually just switch back automatically? Oh, okay, I guess it switches automatically because I'm going through a tunnel. Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, yeah, this is actually helping me out immensely here. I mean, I know you guys can't really see the car very well. Yeah, I do believe that's just, like a roadblock, and I want to avoid that altogether. You definitely want to avoid driving off of the course entirely, because that will slow you down. Thankfully, this is not like other, like, arcade racers or simulation-style racers where your vehicle gets damaged if you crash into a wall, or another vehicle for that matter. I don't think any of the vehicles in this game take any damage whatsoever. I am in 4th place right now, so I'm kind of doing well. I'll try and catch up with everyone else here. But yeah, man, I'm just very impressed by this port, because I can't believe someone was actually able to port the entirety of Virtua Racing over to something like the Pico-8 game engine. Like, I would love to know how exactly Fred72 managed to accomplish this, because this is some fairly impressive stuff, like, you know, technically speaking. I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, it's not exactly that much fun to play, because not only is the frame rate kind of atrocious, at least when there's a lot of objects on the screen, but there's also just much better versions of Virtua Racing out there, honestly. Like, why would you ever want to play this over something like the Switch version? I mean, the Switch version even has, like, online functionality. You can actually play online with up to 7 other people, I think. Yeah, that top-down camera angle definitely helped me out greatly, because I was able to beat it that time. 2 minutes and 28.88 seconds? I don't know if that's good or not. Oh, okay. Well, okay, so this is also something that I need to mention as well. So, if you leave the game idle for too long, it'll actually just restart the track automatically, and I don't know why it does that. And see, the only thing that I don't like about this here is that you do have the option to reset the cart, which you would think would reset the whole game, right? Well, it just resets the track. Yeah, it just restarts the entire course, and you can't actually go back to the main menu this way. Which kinda sucks, because the only other option is to quit the game entirely, which I don't really like doing, but there's really no other option, honestly. Now, something else that I could also show here is that you do also have the option to change the draw distance. So, if you do want to get a little bit more performance out of the game, or if the game is, you know, lagging a little bit too much for your liking, you can set the draw distance to low. And this will cause some of the objects in the distance to simply not render. As you can see, there were parts of the Golden Gate Bridge that were just completely missing when I had the draw distance set to low. But if the game is running very poorly for you, then you can just enable low draw distance, and it should increase performance a little bit, you know, if you want that. If you want higher fidelity graphics though, then keep the draw distance set to high. But do keep in mind, though, that there are some, like, sections of some of these levels where, yeah, the frame rate will kind of tank a little bit, because there's so many objects being rendered on the screen. Does the draw distance affect this windmill by any chance? No, it doesn't. Oh, the windmill's not even solid. Oh, these palm trees aren't even solid either. Oh, this roadblock's not solid. Okay, well, where am I even Whoa, hello? Did I just, like, teleport across the map? What is this? ES? Okay, well, I guess we're going on a little, out-of-bounds adventure. Let's go, boys and girls. Where are we even going? Oh, this is just an ocean. I can even drive into the ocean. God, this looks so much like, You know what this kind of looks like, actually? It looks like a Game Boy Advance game. You know some of the racing games on the Game Boy Advance that kind of tried to use, like, 3D polygonal graphics? That's what this freaking looks like to me, man. Like, some of those Game Boy Advance racing games that tried to take, like, full control of the Game Boy Advance's 3D capabilities, despite how primitive it was in rendering those kinds of scenes. Like some of the Need for Speed games on the Game Boy Advance, for instance. That's kind of what this looks like to me, actually. Just a really tiny screen, and also, like, the very primitive 3D polygonal graphics that look even lower quality than the PlayStation 1 somehow. Yeah, this looks exactly like a Game Boy Advance racing game, dude. I mean, it plays very much like one as well, because the frame rate is just absolute toss. The frame rate on a lot of the GBA racing games were exactly like this too, like they had issues with frame rate. Especially some of the Need for Speed racing games. Well, I guess that's not entirely fair. The Need for Speed racing games on the Game Boy Advance definitely looked a little bit better than this. There wasn't as much pixelation going on. Oh, this says miles. That's what the sign says. Oh, okay. I definitely just, like, went through the ground for a minute. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, I guess we are technically in the ocean now. Okay, I'm just trying to, like, break the game on purpose here. Okay, yeah, I am actually underneath the road, but it's, like, snapping me back up to it. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, Fred72. I'm kind of, like, trying to break your video game port on purpose now. I apologize for this. Yeah, the signs are not even solid. Okay, so I need to exit quickly, otherwise it's just gonna bring me back into the course, which I don't want. Oh, what the heck? Wait a second. But I set a track record, though. It didn't save it? Whoa, what the heck? Wait. It saved the track record for Acropolis, despite the fact that I was playing Bay Bridge. Okay, well, I guess I did actually break the game somehow. Fine, let's just go to Acropolis. I don't even know what's happening. I find myself saying that a lot nowadays. Doesn't apply to just video games, it just applies to the world in general. My god. Okay, anyway, how about we try the first-person perspective for a little while? Yeah, let's try this for a little bit. Okay. Yeah, so this is Acropolis. So, Acropolis is by far the most difficult track in the game, and I mean, if you're having a hard time seeing the road, there is also a mini-map on the screen that you can consult at any time. What I also find really strange is that the music only plays whenever you pass through a checkpoint, and it only plays for a few seconds. They're like very short jingles, which I don't fully understand, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, so the thing that's weird about Acropolis is that you have this massive hairpin turn right here that kind of looks like that one section of the Nürburgring, which is like, yeah, basically like a giant roundabout section almost. Kind of looks like a giant circle. I don't know if that's what it was influenced by or, like, directly influenced. Because I'm gonna assume that all of the courses that I'm seeing here look exactly the same as they do in the arcade version, because I just want you guys to know something. Okay, I definitely phased right through that car. I just want you guys to know something. I've never played Virtua Racing before. Like, I have never played any version of the game in my lifetime. Not the Switch version, not the arcade version, or the Genesis port, or the 32X, or Saturn, or whatever other port that was made of this game. I have not played any of it. The only port of Virtua Racing I've ever played is the Pico-8 version, which is what I'm playing right now, and it's not even an official port. It's fan-made. It's still mighty impressive, though, for Pico-8. And I would love to see, you know, what exactly went into creating this port. You know, how exactly Fred72 managed to pull off this kind of wizardry right here. Doing things that I never thought was even possible with Pico-8, but... Oh god, am I gonna get through the checkpoint in time? Okay, yeah, I did. So, yeah, but see, this only gives me 10 seconds, which I feel, considering how very far spaced out all of the checkpoints are in Acropolis in particular, this really doesn't give me a whole lot of time to complete the track. As a matter of fact, I got a game over right there. Yeah, that's really weird how it saved the track record for Acropolis despite the fact that I played the ocean track. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about this other than that. I do like the fact that it leaves skid marks behind whenever you're braking. Yeah, like, I mean, when you're trying to turn without braking, it leaves skid marks behind, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Which I think is not unlike the arcade version as well, because I think the arcade port had that too. Oh my god, I'm not even paying attention. Yeah, I guess in a way, this also kind of looks like, you know, what would Virtua Racing look like if it was ported to the Game Boy Advance? That's also kind of what this looks like in a way. Like, visual-wise, it does kind of remind me of a lot of the Game Boy Advance racing games that came out many years ago, like the Need for Speed ports, for instance, or even SSX3 in a way. As a matter of fact, I've actually played the Game Boy Advance port of SSX3 on my channel a few years ago. Somehow that became one of the most popular videos on my channel. Like, I checked out that video recently just to see how many views it had. I think last time I checked it had over 9,000 views. It's probably well over 10,000 by now. I don't understand why exactly that video received as many views as it did, because I wouldn't even consider it to be one of my best videos, but I don't freaking know, man. I was just curious as to what SSX3 looked like on the Game Boy Advance. That's why I even made that video in the first place. And now it's like one of my most viewed videos. Like, I don't even understand. I don't understand you guys sometimes. Like, sometimes my weirdest videos are the ones that tend to get the most amount of views. I just don't freaking understand it sometimes, man, but I'm still very thankful for it. Like, I'm still grateful that that video received as much attention as it did. So thank you guys for that anyway. Like, I really appreciate the fact that that video got so much attention as it did, or like it received the amount of attention as it did. Like, thank you guys so much for that. I do appreciate it. Don't think for a minute that I'm ungrateful about that, because I really am grateful. Truly grateful for you guys. It means the world to me that there's at least like 2,400 of you that thought my content was worthy enough to subscribe to. And the fact that even some of my weirdest videos tend to have, like, you know, thousands of views on them, and they're like the most viewed videos on my channel. Like, thank you so much for that, guys. I really appreciate it. Anyway, I'm just completely going off on a tangent now. I'm gonna drive backwards because, I mean, it seems like the game's not even penalizing me for that, so frick it. Frick it, I'm gonna go, like, spar with some people. Here we go, let's go for some jousting. Jousting time, boys and girls, let's do it. Oh my god, I can barely even see any of the cars. Where is the green one? I think I collided with the green one, but nothing happened. Okay, let's try a backwards try. I mean, here's a bit of a challenge. Why not try doing the track backwards? I mean, I think some ports of Virtua Racing actually allow you to do this. Like, they have, like, reverse versions of the track, or mirrored versions, which I think the PlayStation 2 port has, specifically. And maybe the Switch port. Like, I don't know. I haven't played, like, any port of this game, aside from Pico-8. Also, I don't think I'm colliding with any of the cars. I think I'm just, like, straight up phasing through them, so there's some weird collision issues going on with this. Yeah, I have no idea. I think other than that, guys, I am going to end this video right here. Okay, well, I collided with that car, but yeah, the collisions in this game are not that exciting to look at. Yeah, those are the people who created the remixed music for this game, by the way. Navica and Ruby Red. Yeah, they are the composers for this fan-made port of Virtua Racing, so go and support the work that they've done. Or go support the work that they do, I should say. Yeah, so I think I am gonna end this video here, guys, because I don't have anything more to add to this. I mean, Virtua Racing itself is a fairly straightforward game. I mean, it's not like other arcade racing games that allow you to, like, you know, destroy your opponents with all sorts of absurd items and weapons. No, it's kind of like a combination between arcade-style racing game and simulation-style racing game. It's like a combination of both genres, or both subgenres, I guess. Yeah, just trying to get the fastest lap time, basically, or the fastest track time, and that's about it. Like, there's nothing more to Virtua Racing other than that. And that's all there really is to say about this port as well. There's only 3 tracks, because I mean, the arcade version only had 3 tracks as well. And yeah, I would say that it's fairly faithful. I mean, even though I haven't played Virtua Racing, I've seen gameplay footage of it, including the PlayStation 2 and Switch versions. I would say that this is a fairly faithful remake. I mean, it seems to play quite a bit like Virtua Racing, so that's good at least. Not the most exciting racing game in the world, but I feel feel like there are some people who would greatly appreciate this port and the work that went into making it. So with that being said, if you want to go and play this specific port of the game, the link is in the description. If you want to go and pick up the Nintendo Switch version of Virtua Racing, well, I'll just let you go and find that yourself. It should be fairly easy to find. Virtua Racing was only released digitally on the Switch as far as I know. If you want to get the PlayStation 2 version of Virtua Racing, well, you're probably going to have to consult eBay or Amazon about that. Same thing if you're trying to find the Genesis, 32X, and Saturn ports. Of course, you could also emulate them too, but yeah, that's all I have to say about Virtua Racing. Also, there's not even anyone in the cockpit. The car is literally driving itself. The car is sentient, it is self-aware, and that's kinda terrifying. But anyway, if you're a fan of Virtua Racing, I think you will actually like this port quite a bit. Even though there isn't that much to say about it and not really that much to do, I'm just so surprised that someone was able to port this to the Pico-8 game engine of all things. Like, I was not aware that Pico-8 was capable of rendering three-dimensional polygons. Like, there is some definite magic under the hood that is going on here. The indie game community continues to amaze me. Anyway, if you want to play this port, the link is in the description. And by the way, because this was made in Pico-8, you can actually play this port in your browser. You don't need to download it for any reason. You can play it from directly within your browser, so go and play it. Go play it now. By the way, I also want to mention this too. Just because I played this port of the game instead of the Genesis version, which is what I wanted to play originally, that doesn't mean I might not still play the Genesis port at some point in the future, because the Genesis version of Virtua Racing does have a lot of interesting history behind it that I would like to discuss in a video someday. So I may come back to Virtua Racing at some point in the future so I can talk about the Genesis port. So that may still happen someday. But I wanted to cover this instead because I remembered very recently that I also came across this one day and I really wanted to show it off to you guys because just the fact that this port even exists is just mind-blowing to me. Yeah, Virtua Racing, but it's 8-bit. The indie game community is just amazing, dude. Anyway, that's it. No more tangents. I'm done. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video I make. Later.